The reality is, if you are not clear on the best approach to partnerships, that you'll be risking creating a partnership that's actually a liability, which obviously isn't good for you or your business. Welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figure Educator Podcast. My name is Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas. I am your host. I'm a former teacher, former principal, Harvard grad, and founder and CEO of EJT Education Group. During this episode, I wanted to have a conversation around seven-figure partnerships. The reason why I wanted to have this conversation is because as my business has evolved, as we've grown, I realized that how I defined partnerships, who I partnered with, how I partnered, it evolved and grew too. And I wanted to have a conversation and really break it down so that way you have the knowledge and the tools that I had to kind of learn through trial and error around how to approach partnerships and the different stages of your business. Because the reality is, if you are not clear on the best approach to partnerships, that you'll be risking creating a partnership that's actually a liability, which obviously isn't good for you or your business. So let's first just start with defining the three stage of businesses. So I went in depth into this in another episode around the three stages of business. And so if you want to learn more about it, you can go and check out that episode. But let me just give you a little brief summary and overview so that way we're on the same page. So the first stage of business is 0 to 250K in revenue, and that's the experimenting stage. That's where we're running a lot of experiments to get clear on our service model and our pricing. The second stage is 250K to 750K in annual revenue. And this stage I call the growing stage. This is when you're growing the infrastructure of your business, you're growing your systems, you're growing your team, you're growing your automations to be able to serve more clients. And then the third and final stage is 750K to a million plus. This is the stage that I call scaling. This is where we are now pouring gas on your business such that you can exponentially grow the number of clients that you're serving and grow your impact exponentially as well. So we have these three stages of business, and the reason why I love thinking about business in these three stages is because what you need to focus on, prioritize, and how you partner in each of these three stages looks very different. And this is something I didn't realize until I partnered the way that I should not have been partnering in the wrong stage. And I learned a really valuable lesson. So I wanted to share this content with you so that way you can avoid some of the missteps that I made. So let's talk about what partnership looks like in the experimenting stage. And first off, let me just name from a partnership standpoint, like why partnerships are valuable. Partnerships are super valuable because there's three ways to generate traffic. There is organic, where you can organically be generating leads, be generating awareness and attention for your business. And that's just going through the actions that you would typically go through of posting on social media, maybe sending emails. All those are examples of organically marketing your business. The second way to market your business or build traffic is through paid advertisement. So running ads, maybe paying to speak at a conference. Anytime you are paying money to access another audience or you're paying money to build awareness in your business, that's a paid traffic strategy. And third and final, you have partnerships. So partnerships are a great way to generate traffic in your business. And when you're thinking about the experimenting stage, partnerships are a really low cost way to be generating awareness around who you are, who you serve, the problem you're solving in your business. So in the experimenting stage, really early on in your business, you really don't have any criteria for your partnerships because all partnerships are kind of good partnerships because it's more people who know about you. If you don't have the partnerships, then people don't know about you. It's a really low lift, low cost way for folks to know about you and your business. So early on in your business, you really don't have any criteria. It's kind of a come one, come all type of strategy in relationships to partnerships. I know we are in the middle of some really good, juicy content, but I wanted to make sure that you knew about my free public Facebook group, which is the opportunity for you to network with other education consultants. Community is so important on your journey, and this is an easy, low-lift way to be able to plug into a community. And so go ahead, click the link below in the show notes to be able to request to join our public free Facebook group so that way you can find your community. Let's get back to the episode. Now, when you are growing your business, there is a point where you now have to become a little bit more narrow and defined in who you partner with. So when I was in the experimenting stage of my business, again, I had no criteria. I was out here just partnering with any and all the people because I just wanted to get more attention, more traffic into my business. And I look back on some of those partnerships and they actually just didn't make sense. Like, we didn't share the same audience. They really weren't proximate to my target client, but in my head, all awareness was good awareness. And that's just the reality of the experimenting stage, that you are just putting as many opportunities out there for yourself to really be able to garner the attention for your business. Now, when you're growing and you move into the growing stage, it's no longer in the best interest of your business for you to just be accepting any old partnership, right? And when I'm saying partnership could mean we might do a social media takeover, or we might go live together, or you might send an email to your email list about an upcoming webinar or training that I'm doing, or maybe we partner together and do a joint venture, right? So again, in this experimenting stage, you're probably really loose with it, and that's okay in the experimenting stage. But when you get into the growing stage, now you've established that revenue, because we're now talking 250 to 750K in annual revenue, that it's no longer in the best interest of your time to be accepting any and all partnerships, right? So you start to narrow that definition of who makes sense to partner with. And typically, who makes sense to partner with are now people who share the same audience that you do, but they're solving a different problem. So because they solve a different problem, they're not technically your competitor. And in my head, ain't nobody my competitor, but you know what I'm saying? We share a similar audience, but from a service standpoint, we have two completely different services. That makes sense for me to partner with because I'm tapping into folks who could be potential leads, right? So in the growing stage of your business, this is where you start to narrowly define who makes sense to partner with. And that's the most solid criteria, is someone who's serving the same audience, but they are solving a different problem. Now, when you move into the scaling part of your business, we're pushing the 7-figure mark, if not already crossed the 7-figure mark. This is where we are moving from narrowing who we partner with to now we're being more selective. Because now it's not just a matter of what's a great use of my time, but now it's a matter of assessing liability because I got shit to lose now. Because my business is now making significant revenue. I now have a team. I'm now in paying salaries. Like, I have a lot of things to lose that if this partnership doesn't go well, the impact is felt a lot differently when I have 7 figures of revenue versus when I'm experimenting and maybe I just hit my first 6 figures, right? Like, I can afford for a partnership to not go well if I'm at the 100K mark versus when I'm at the 7-figure mark. Because if a partnership doesn't go well, 9 times out of 10, I'm losing money at the scaling stage versus experimenting. I might have just lost some time or whatever, but I'm gonna keep pushing. I really didn't lose any revenue. So at this partnership stage, at the scaling phase, you have got to be really clear on who makes sense to partner with. And here are a couple of criteria that I think about. The first thing that I think about is, do we share the same audience and they solve a different problem? So that criteria we had in the growing stage, and that still exists in this stage. And then secondly, I think about, okay, what is their actual reach in terms of audience? Because if they only have an email list of 300 people if they only have a social media following of 500 people, that's actually not an effective use of my time from a partnership standpoint. How often are they sending emails? So if we record a podcast episode together, will they even share it with their email list? So if they're not emailing their email list, that means that I'm not actually able to effectively partner with them and tap into their audience because they don't even email their list, right? So those are some of the questions that I would start asking to get more clarity on not only what their audience size is, but how are they actually engaging in their audience? So that way, this actually becomes an effective partnership, right? The other thing that I think about is what is the values of the other person? And are we aligned in our values? Because the liability that is presented when we are not aligned in our values is now I am risking my reputation. And when I'm aligned with a partner who we have different values, then now I've actually created a very big risk for me and my business. So let me give you an example. If I partner with someone who, let's say, has very different political views than I do, right? And that might be individually, but business wise, some people might think of them as separate, but given me and my brand, my target audience is Black educators. And if you have particular views that don't align to the social equity and justice cause that is baked into my business, given who I serve and who I show up to, that actually is creating a risk for me. We ain't gonna partner together. I don't care how great of a person you are. I don't care how much we could chit chat. I don't care if we had great drinks at the bar. We are not going to partner together because you are now creating a risk for my business. So those are a couple of things that I think about when it comes to partnerships at the scaling level. And the last thing that I would just name here is when we're thinking about partnerships and you're now at the scaling level, assessing what is the human capital capacity that the other person has in their business. So to be frank and to make this clear and plain, that now at the scaling stage, you can no longer afford to partner with someone who does not have a team. And the reason why that becomes a risk is because that person without a team is one life event away from their business pausing. So if they get sick, if they have an emergency, if something happens with their family, God forbid, if someone passes away, or if there is some significant life event that happens and they have to take time off from their business and there is no one else there to be able to carry the work forth, now your partnership is on pause. And if we were doing a joint venture webinar together, now we might have to push back the date. Now we might have to redo the marketing plan. Now we might have to completely change our plans because you don't have a team. And now you just cost me time and money, right? So those are the things that I think about, because one of the things that I didn't realize as I was growing my business is how the liability of partnership increases as your business grows. And I've had experiences where I've partnered with people who don't have teams, and me wanting to support their business, them having a solution that they can offer in my business, and then something happens in their family and they cannot show up. And now my business is on pause and it's just annoying, honestly. So here are a couple of things to be thinking about, some structures to put in place, some boundaries to put in place as you're navigating these partnerships. And even if you're not at the scaling phase just yet, these are still things that you want to be aware of, so that way you can either backwards plan from it, or you can start laying that foundation now in your partnership, such that you can grow into these strategies that I'm going to share with you. So first, when it comes to partnerships, when you are at the scaling phase, your partnerships now need to have contracts, meaning you need to have partnership agreements. And that is the opportunity for you to clearly lay out all the expectations of the partnership. Is there an expectation of time? Is there an expectation of revenue? Is there an expectation of a revenue split? Is there an expectation of communication? If we are partnering together for a joint venture workshop, whose account are we creating the webinar on? And who's accepting the money? and who is then having to pay out, and what's the date in which the payout has to happen, and what's the split of the payout, who's sending the emails, who's running the ads, right? All these things, right, that you don't think about until you now get into a partnership and something happens and now you realize, oh, that person missed a deadline, so ads aren't running for your joint venture, and now you've potentially impacted the number of registrants for your webinar because the person was late starting the ads, right? So your contracts are the perfect place to outline all the expectations of the partnership and make it crystal clear and black and white from jump of how you all are going to engage in the partnership. When you do not have that document in place, you have now set yourself up for a liability, and you've set you up for a potential headache if something doesn't go right. Secondly, ask for data. When it comes to the partnership, ask questions. Ask them how many people are on your email list. How many times a week do you communicate with your email list? What's your social media following look like? How many times a week do you post? When's the last time that you've gone live? If you're asking me to be a podcast guest, well, how many downloads did you have the past month? What platforms are you on? How many times do you email your list about your podcast? How frequently do you drop episodes? When's the last time you've posted an episode? Because don't ask me to be on your podcast and you ain't posted in 6 months. Right? Because now you've impacted the listenership of the podcast to where it may not be the best use of my time if you're only getting 5 downloads a month on your podcast, right? That's not going to be the best use of my time to be able to show up and spend time recording the episode when I could go and find 5 leads on my own, right? So ask about the data. And a real authentic partner who's really about that action and about that partnership will have no problem being transparent with those numbers to be able to state their case of why the partnership will be beneficial for both parties. And then lastly, you have to be willing to cut partnerships quickly that are not serving you. So one of the other learnings that I've had as my business has grown is there are some partnerships that they just grow at a different pace. And if they grow at a different pace, then typically what happens is that there will be some pivot point in the relationship where the relationship's no longer serving you. So if, I'm partnered with someone a couple of years ago when we were both solopreneurs, we were both out here building our business, and now here we are 2-3 years later, I have a team and you're still a solopreneur, that's fine. And now there's a different liability to this relationship because going back to if you don't have a team, now you're creating a risk with my business. There's some partnerships that I've had to exit because now you've created an increased liability. 2 years ago, it was cool. But now we're at the place where I've actually have to evolve because I need greater capacity to be able to support our business. I'm not willing to take the risk of you being one life event away from your business being on pause, right? So when you get those inklings that a relationship has come to its season where it's time to end, you really got to listen to that spirit of discernment to be able to make the decision that it's time to be able to sunset and to move forward. And it's not personal, it's simply business. And there's a way to be able to sunset that relationship, to center the other person's humanity, to be able to give them feedback, to be transparent, and just move on. So those are a couple of pieces related to 7-figure partnerships that I'm hoping are beneficial for you and meaningful for you. And if you found something that was helpful in this conversation, let me know in the comments. Give me some feedback. Let me know what stuck out for you. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and subscribe so that way you know when the next episode drops. Thank you for joining me here on the 7-Figure Educator podcast, and I'll see you on the next one.